Greetings. Welcome to Dr. Neil's Spiritual Awakening to Non-Duality. This is Dr. Connie Zweig, and I'll be interviewing my husband who lives in spiritual awakening. You may have heard about this or read about it, but you may not know someone who lives it day to day. We'll be exploring how non-duality developed in Dr. Neil as I've observed it over 25 years, and as he directly experiences it every day. Each podcast will explore a different theme. We look forward to you joining us. Greetings. We're back with another podcast with Dr. Neil. And today we're going to explore Who Am I Part 3, from living as a soul to living as spirit. I am everything. So, Dr. Neil, let's review a little bit for people who didn't hear podcast 1 or 2 of this series, living as an ego and living as soul first.
Okay, so human consciousness is the first thing that we're going to explore, which is awareness of your body and moving it and allowing yourself to become conscious of the body as an entity which you have control of. This is my body. That sort of is what cavemen are like, is an instinctive process. And that has to do with getting food and shelter and sex.
Survival needs.
Survival needs. The next level is the emotional and human development follows that to people who start to love and care and share and have conflict and anger and hurt and joy as human beings. And it's typical of tribal cultures. In other words, cultures where they're agrarian, they're
group consciousness rather than egoic.
Correct. So the group consciousness in the sense that I survive because my group survives, and I die for my group. And the next level is the intellectual or the mind, which has many identities, roles as a father, a husband, a believer in certain views, political affiliations. It's an identity that says, I am that. I am that separate intellectual consciousness.
I am what I think. I am what I believe.
Correct. Thanks for putting that in. And next we get the intuitive level. The intuitive level means things come to you because they just do. We don't know where they come from, but we know that we identify with them. And we know that they are part of us. When we integrate all those 4 together, we get what in the East is called an ego. We're not talking about Freud or Jung here. We're talking about an identity that is integrated, that says, I am those things that I've already mentioned.
And what is it like for you living as an ego? What is the human experience of that, the subjective experience?
I get up in the morning, I brush my teeth, I do my work, I love my wife, I call my grandkids, I enjoy my story, I'm going to die, I was born and conceived, and I became aware and of being a human being who's got a limited cycle. It's this lifetime.
Okay, and for me, there's an inherent experience of separation.
Yes, well, you're as separate as you can be when you're an ego.
Okay.
So, and many traditions try to go beyond ego. So they consider ego to be a boundary, that identity keeps you stuck out of spiritual realms.
So let's move to living as a soul.
All right, so we're still talking about the human journey, although few people actually get to become aware of living as a soul. The soul follows one through all the lifetimes, and in a previous interview, I spoke about a lifetime that I call previous lifetime. The soul leaves the body after death, finds its home amongst the group that it belongs to, and spends some time there, and then reincarnates as an individual. It also has a sense of connected identity with the purpose of its group soul. So, for example, mine is love and wisdom and service. So that my group soul functions in terms of that and creates life in terms of that. The soul is also conscious throughout the egoic life and is constantly guiding, building, creating, sustaining, and dissolving the aspects of the personal life. So it's there at conception, and it's there at birth, and it's there at teenage years, and it's there as an adult, and it's there in the spiritual realms as well. So one gets to experience spiritual identities.
So what's the lived experience of living as a soul?
I remember my past lifetimes. I have no beginning or no end. I'm eternal, not empty, and that's a higher level, but eternal.
So is there less sense of separation?
Yes, because one can join with your group soul, and one can connect with beings on different levels and planes. Many think of it as opening up the sixth chakra, the ajna, the sixth chakra, so one can connect with the dead. One can connect with beings from other planes. So it's possible as a soul to travel to different realms.
Okay, so let's move beyond the soul.
Okay, so we ended the human development when we go beyond soul and we enter into the divine development. In other words, this is the nature of the divinity and divine consciousness. Up until now, we've spoken about the human development, even though it can be quite expanded and beyond most people. It's still human. So we're moving into the divine development now.
And so what was your experience of that, of the beginning of that?
Mm-hmm.
So I would suggest that for you, the beginning was a local non-duality. You looked at the tree and you saw the self or consciousness in the tree that was the same as consciousness in you.
Yeah, that's true. I looked at the sky and saw myself in the sky. I looked at the birds and saw myself in the birds. I looked at people in my work and saw myself there.
So that was a dissolution.
My essence.
Your essence. And so that was sort of the end of the subject-object duality. But it was the beginning for you.
Well, it was the beginning of the subject-object non-duality. So where the objects of perception, hearing, sight, emotion, feeling became part of the subject. They were no different in essence. That doesn't mean that if I looked at a person, I didn't see the external person, but I saw beyond, and beyond myself was there. Myself was also in the body on all its levels, physical, emotional, mental, intuitive, ego was there, and was also in the object of perception.
So the earlier stages were transcended, but they were also included in your experience.
Correct. There's not a dissolving of any stage on my path. My path was one of growth and inclusion, and it still is. It still is about growing, becoming, evolving, and including what was there before. So there's awareness of the body and moving it. For example, on a conscious level, I moved the hand. I moved the hand. Emotionally, I had the desire to move the hand. Mentally, I had the concept of a hand as mine and moving it. Intuitively, I had a sense that this is happening. And from an ego point of view, I am moving this hand. But from a soul point of view, I am still moving this hand. But once one goes beyond soul, this hand is moving itself. So I'm not doing it. The divine is doing it.
What is that like?
Puzzling at first, because you kind of realize that your mouth is speaking and words are coming out, and yet it's not your mouth. And you move your body, and yet one identifies with what the body is doing. One is not that body doing that. It's happening. So all consciousness is just happening.
So there's no longer identification with the doer.
At this stage, yes. The ego, up until the ego stage, one is identified with the doer. And then at very advanced stages, which we'll get to, there's a re-identification with the doer. But
Okay.
at this stage, there's no identification with the doer.
Okay. So that local non-duality emerged.
Mm-hmm.
And then what emerged after that?
Well, there was a growing sense of non-duality beyond the local. So it became not something that I was seeing with my physical eyes, but something I was seeing with my psychic ability. So looking deeper into the world, looking deeper into beings, looking deeper into different levels of consciousness, until I got to a stage where I was looking at the cosmos, the universe, starting with the galaxy, and also noting at the same time that I was the galaxy, dreaming up the neo consciousness, the
local identity.
the local identity. So, and then once I reached that sort of galactic level, I started to become aware that there was something similar to the Big Bang, which was a state which was beyond time, space, beyond space-time, outside of space-time, that was creating that awareness. I was empty at that level, and there was something outside of space-time that was creating the awareness of the cosmos, the universe.
Outside of space-time, meaning something beyond the relative reality?
A place where there was no space and there was no time. And that allowed me to identify with what at the time I called the traveler, which means my awareness is not in space-time, but I can manifest my awareness anywhere in space-time. So I could be in the galaxy. I could be in the astral, mental, Buddhic, atmic planes, the cosmic planes. I could connect with spiritual beings. So I could see the subtle realms that were going on in the tree outside my window with the blinds closed. So there was awareness of objects outside of the relative perspective.
And outside of physical sight. So the local non-duality required the physical sight.
Right.
And then it no longer required that.
No, there was psychic sight and then knowing. So just knowing it's there.
Okay. And so now there's a more vast or cosmic non-duality
Right,
that doesn't require the object to be in front of you.
right.
And the object can be, or it isn't an object anymore
Well,
because it isn't a subject-object dynamic.
no, it still has a subject object. For example, my mother passed away nearly a year ago, and I'm conscious of her now, where she's on the Buddhic plane, the heart plane. And she's aware that I'm thinking about her, and we can have a conversation in the mind. And while I'm looking at her as an object from a subject point of view, I'm also that. I'm also her. The essence of me is also her. And it's also here in all these forms.
So the duality is included in the non-dual experience.
Correct.
That's how you can operate in the world. That's how you see patients all day long
Yes.
as a psychologist.
Yeah, this is one of the big fallacies that happens because in the East and in the West, mystics tend to isolate, to become monks, living in caves, living in communities that allow them not to be functional. But if you follow my path, the one that I've followed, I'm fully functional on a physical level, emotional level, mental level.
The path of the householder.
The path of the householder, got to be awake and to live life as it is, plus the additional.
Okay. So you've always said to me the purpose of life is not to be awakened, it's to be human.
Yes, I came here to be a human being, to be as fully a human being as possible. But what I'm discovering is that that includes not just the animal nature, but the human nature as I've expanded it, and the spiritual nature, the divine levels, of which there are many more than we've actually covered so far.
Okay. So is there anything else you want to say about living beyond soul, living as spirit? You've been saying, I am everything, everywhere.
Yeah, there's nowhere where I'm not, except in the personal story of my life. In other words, there's something in the way the journey manifests that it won't allow me to know the future of the personal story of my life because I have to live it. And that's part of the story, the reason why I came here. I came here to be a human being, not to be somebody who was not aware of that. But there's many more levels. There's non-duality in subject. In other words, myself is empty. I can't find a me there. And there's the objects that I perceive with my physical eyes, psychic eyes, spiritual eyes. There's nobody there. It's empty. The whole cosmos is empty of manifestation. And its first manifestation in terms of consciousness is a sense of potential. It's before anything was created, before anything existed. I am there too. I am in that place before anything existed. I am the source from which existence arises.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm the source from which everything arises.
Right. So what I've been realizing in the last couple of months is that there are states where there's no subject, no object. In other words, they're non-dual, that are far more complex than just looking at a tree and seeing oneself in the tree. There are states like love. Love is a state that in a spiritual sense, non-personal love we're talking about, has no beginning or end. Is not personal, it's not my love. or somebody else's love. It's just love. And I experienced that with all the different levels that I've spoken about, as well as I experienced that state.
Can we say it's a quality of consciousness or true nature?
It's a quality of the divine. The divine loves. God loves everything. Ecstasy is another one. God is ecstatic. Happiness is another one. There is no limit to it. There's no boundary to it.
So these are boundless states that don't require the subject and object in the way we think about love or personalize it, or happiness. We personalize it. And what you're saying is there's something inherent in the nature of everything that carries those states.
Right.
And so if you are experiencing pain, let's say you get a headache, or you have back pain,
which I do.
So what happens for you with the pain state?
Okay, so right now my back is hurting a little. Probably the way I'm sitting in this chair. There's not just pain, there's bliss too. And there's joy at the same time. When I first woke up to a spiritual state, a being state, not a doing state, a being state, I had a migraine. And I focused my attention on the migraine. And gradually, over a period of an hour, the migraine disappeared into total ecstasy.
So is there something that you're doing to find the bliss and the ecstasy while you're in pain? And does this mean that there's no suffering?
There is suffering, but there is something bigger than suffering. So right now there's a nectar in my mouth, joy in the heart, and pain in the back. There's a connection with the suffering of human beings on the planet, and there is the joy of being alive at the same time. So these are states that are transient and passing. I don't experience pain as permanent.
And so can you say anything to anyone who has a lot of physical suffering that might be helpful?
This too will pass. The nature of life is ecstasy, bliss, joy, happiness, love. That's the nature of the divine. Go for that.
Satchidananda.
Satchidananda. The divine is everywhere. And it's in you. Look for it. Embrace it. Fight for it. This is not a passive journey. This is an active journey. One embraces the reality of life. There's more, but we'll do that next time.
Okay, thank you everyone for listening.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in today. If you found our discussion insightful, there's a good chance your friends will too. And we'd love it if you could take a moment to share this episode with a friend who you believe would appreciate it. Help us spread the word and reach more people. And follow us on any platform. Turn on your episode notifications so you never miss new content. Thanks for being part of our podcasting journey.